calling. The big story tonight is all about the first Kenyan Attorney General under the new constitution, who is no longer working for the Jubilee government. Githu Muigai tendered his resignation, which was announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta today at State House. The president also announced that he had appointed Justice Paul Kariuki Kihara to take over from Professor Githu Muigai. The reasons for Githu's resignation remain unclear at the moment, but the senior counsel will be remembered for his ardent fights for the government, especially the Jubilee administration, which he started by representing as far as in the International Criminal Court, when then, in their first term, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto, were facing charges at the Hague-based court. Githu also defended the government in several other controversial situations, like the Anglo-leasing payout, and much lately, the swearing-in of opposition leader Raila Odinga as President of the People of the Republic of Kenya. Githu's resignation comes at a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta is restructuring the government for his second term, leaving many wondering if he left on his own volition or was forced to tender his resignation. He becomes the first Kenyan Attorney General to resign from office. So, what did Githu Muigai want to leave as his legacy, and did he achieve it? Listen to this.
Legacies. It's the National Legal Aid Bill, and we are going to make legal aid available to all citizens of Kenya who qualify. Whether you have civil matters or criminal matters, there will be lawyers supplied by the state to help wananchi resolve their problems. This is so important because the justice system can never truly perform at a good efficiency level if the people appearing before it don't know how to run it.
We're discussing that as well as the wider changes. Some are calling it a purge that has been made. We've seen in various offices in the judiciary as well as the legal fraternity surrounding the presidency. Tonight, our lead reporter Sophia Wanuna will be giving us context as to what this means. Also, I'll be speaking with lawyer James Mamboleo as well as George Watakoya. And I'll also later be speaking to lawyer James Agri Mwamu, who will be joining us here on The Big Story on phone. We'll be getting to all of that, but first, let's lay it down now with Sophia Wanuna, who's joining us from Muthaiga here in Nairobi. Sophia, it's good to speak to you. A lot of people perhaps surprised, but others not so surprised by Professor Githu Muigai's resignation today.
Good evening, Yvonne. Yes, that resignation we saw earlier, Professor Githu Muigai is standing right next to President Uhuru Kenyatta as he announced that the AG had tendered his resignation. And Yvonne, this is a long-spanning career in the legal, serving in legal affairs for Professor Githu Muigai. 20 years it has been. And actually on this day, 4 years ago, he was representing Kenya at the International Criminal Court against accusations of interference in the cases then facing Kenyatta and Ruto. However, back to the question, we'll be talking to a number of lawyers today as to whether they are surprised by this. Many say no. And one of the examples the lawyers were citing is, you remember last year in May, Deputy President William Ruto in a forum announcing that Kenya was sponsoring the candidature of Attorney General Githu Muigai to be a judge of an international tribunal for the law of the seabed. Quite a subject there dealing in mining issues. However, he was not successful in that candidature, and many opine that it was at that particular point that a shot was fired, that the red flag was raised in as far as trying to get him out, and that they were trying to ease him in, an easy exit, if you like. And then after that, the signs were all indicative of an administration that was keen not to continue with the AG, who has now been in office for 6.5 years. However, most of them, Yvonne, talking to them today, you remember the cabinet, as a cabinet, the Attorney General sits in the cabinet. We do not have a minister for justice, but the AG is seen to sit in that capacity as well, other than just advising the government on matters of law. And so when the executive has been seen to be on a collision path with the judiciary over the last couple of months, we saw that annulling of the presidential election and the other issues that have emerged, it was largely expected, we hear, within the executive that he would have been a man, other than offering the legal advice, trying to deal and calm the undercurrents and fit into that political role in a sense as well, to ensure matters do not escalate in the sense in which we saw some of them do. And so in some quarters feeling that in and of itself, especially with the president that talked about revisiting the judiciary question, that he was seen to have not taken his rightful position, especially in some of these matters, that he took it purely on law and did not play that very touchy and cross that line of the politics involved in all of this, Yvonne.
Yes, that's right. And also we cannot speak about the resignation of Professor Githu Muigai without taking into context what's happening, in the wider span of things, and that's what's happening in the judiciary. A number of other changes have been made in the legal fraternity surrounding the presidency tonight.
Yes, Yvonne, other than the change, and of course he proposed and nominated Paul Kihara Kariuki, who's the president of the Court of Appeal, to take over that position of the Attorney General. He also moved his constitutional advisor, that has been Abdikadir Mohammed, to ambassador position in South Korea, and that position has not gotten a replacement. And also for the Solicitor General, Njem Muturi has now been moved to deputize Waita Nzioka as a deputy chief of staff, and his position being taken by Kennedy Ogeto. But also the Judicial Service Commission has 3 appointments, or nominations, if you like, by the president. You have Olive Mugenda, Felix Keske, as well as Patrick Gishohi. Those are the 3 names that have been fielded by the president for the body that oversees the affairs of the judiciary. But also in light of what the president did today, and as far as those changes are concerned, a notable one is from the Chief Justice himself, David Maraga, sent out a circular, 17 judges reshuffled. A notable name in that is one that the executive has had a problem with prominently and speaking about it, at least through the leader of the majority, and that's Justice Odunga. He has been the review judge division of the review here in Nairobi. He has been moved as a presiding judge to Machakos now. You remember some point last year, Aidan Duale talking about them intending to deal with Justice Odunga because of some of the controversial rulings that were seen allegedly to favor the opposition. So all of that happening. And Yvonne, let's get a little bit more perspective with a member of the Judicial Service Commission, Tom Ojenda. We are in his office here in Muthaiga. Thank you for making time for us. First, the Attorney General's resignation, did it catch you by surprise?
In terms of time, I would say it did. In a way, I thought it was coming at some point, as you've mentioned, when he was nominated to the International Seabed Authority. I thought that then, of course, he would ease off. I know that he was a man who is very deep in the law. I have no doubt about Professor Githu's knowledge of the law. He's a senior counsel. I have had to listen to him submit at the International Court of Justice, and I thought he would be judge at the ICJ. He has also, as you've said, dealt with fairly sensitive cases. He's one of the few Attorney Generals who have appeared or continue to appear personally or in person in the Supreme Court to argue the presidential election petitions. He is therefore one of a kind. He's extremely professional. He's open, but I think maybe where the political meets the legal, maybe there would have been a problem there. And I think normally it's not very easy to balance law and politics, because politics can overwhelm the law. And perhaps that is what has happened to my friend Professor Githu Muigai. Ordinarily, though, I think his exit is very professional, because he has opted to resign. He's not been dropped or sacked, and that is a plus. And I hope that Judge Kiara, who has assumed that position, will take over and perform the tasks. The only question that arises is perhaps the question of a judge who probably has not yet resigned as judge, and who then comes to sit as Attorney General, will then be appearing before other courts that are lower than his rank, because the Court of Appeal judge. So those are probably the issues that will come to fore in the days to come. But I think that largely Judge Kariuki is equal to the task. By virtue of appointment to AG, he becomes a member of the Judicial Service Commission. So he will join the commissioners in dealing with matters of the Judicial Service Commission.
You say you see this as a resignation. However, some are saying, was it of his own volition or was it one of those manipulated kind of scenarios? Because it came with other changes within the larger judiciary. So in a sense, if it's a resignation, you'd imagine it would just come on an ordinary day. But coming in the midst of all these changes and movement, even from the CJ himself, some people raising questions about that.
I think in government, anything is possible. You may be asked to resign, and you may be told it is time to resign. So I think that this is pure nomenclature, because resigning means that you voluntarily agree to exit. But you can also be asked to voluntarily agree to exit when the time has come. In politics, that is what happens. Yeah. So, but it is a honorable thing to do, because we saw the Honorable Attorney General flank His Excellency the President, which is a good thing. It shows that there was communication. I believe that you're aware of the days when your name would be read, or you'd hear your name in some communication over a radio when you're traveling, and you're asked to surrender your car. Now, this is civil, and this is, in my view, more professional, more agreeable, and honorable.
Yeah. Do you think also this resignation is one of those that he's carrying the burden of the challenges that have been then witnessed and the conflict or friction, if you like, between the executive and the judiciary? The president was clear about revisiting, and many are wondering, is this that revisit he spoke about?
Well, certainly, I would say that with the reconstitution of the Judicial Service Commission, this is certainly revisiting, because I think the JSC will have a new face. We now have Professor Olive Mugenda coming in to replace Winnie Gushu. We have Felix Koskei replacing KK. In fact, Bet, unfortunately, one of my good friends in the commission, had 3 years to serve. He'd only served 2.5 years. So his term is yet to expire, but he has been recalled. That means that, and remember, he had replaced Professor Kobia, Professor Kobia, who was also recalled before his term expired. So I think there's a sequence there that when you are a presidential appointee in the JSC, it is unlikely that your full term would not be served, depending on the interest at the point. Yeah. But I must say that the Professor Olive Mugenda is a deep person, an excellent academic and administrator. We have Felix Koskei has been Minister for Agriculture. I believe that they will contribute or play a role in the administration of judiciary like their predecessors. So I think we will welcome the Judicial Service Commission and work together. Yeah. I think what is important is to be able to stand up to the challenge of the Commission and ensure that we have a judiciary that is working and that is independent, of course. Yes.
The changes and reshuffle with the judges, and especially for Justice Odunga, having heard calls for him to be moved or even for a procedure to sack him, is this a judiciary that's been intimidated, seeing as the CJ has actually moved him from Nairobi to Machakos to be presiding judge?
No, the transfers of the 17 judges must be seen in the light of ordinary transfers, because I know that Judge Odunga, for instance, has done more than 3 years in his station at Milimani, the JR division. I know that the other judges who have been transferred are on a circuit because they have done 3 years. Judge Morino Dera has done 3 years in Nakuru, comes to Nairobi. I've looked at the list, and I think that in exercising his power to transfer judges, the Chief Justice was guided by the time that the judges were spent in their respective stations. You have referred to questions around, the political questions around Judge Odunga. I believe that his transfer to Machakos would ease some of the pressures that he has had. I think it's good for the judge to have an opportunity to serve elsewhere. I believe that the other transfers, in my view, are ordinary transfers. But the only, of course, the concern is that they all come at the same time. They all seem to have been done at the same time. I believe that the Judicial Service Commission will continue to discharge its functions. We are now fully constituted.
Yeah. But you said you see it as a revisit.
Well, the revisiting in the sense that it is now full, we now have new faces, and some individuals like Commissioner KK, Bet, did not finish his term. Now you can see that there was a re-evaluation of representation of the executive at the Judicial Service Commission, and perhaps it was seen that those who were at the JSC were not delivering. For instance, Mr. Gishoi will come in to replace Professor Kobia, who was the chair of the Public Service Commission. So we have a new face from the PSC. We then have a new AG. The President of the Court of Appeal will come in as the Attorney General in the JSC. So you have 4 new faces at the judicial. That's definitely a reconstitution.
Yeah. Finally, for the Attorney General who's been nominated, Kihara, and serving at the pleasure of the President, but also he came under criticism during the electioneering time and the petitions when he quickly reconstituted a 3-judge bench, the Court of Appeal, to be able to stop a matter or at least put a stay, if that was what it's called, from the High Court. And it was seen to be expeditious politically to serve a purpose, and that events usually do not work that way, especially with the timing and all that happened. So is this, in your view, the right person?
I believe that in appointing Judge Kariuki, the President exercises powers as mandated by the Constitution, so you cannot fault the President in nominating or appointing Judge Kihara. That's one. Remember, the role of the AG is to advise government, so he plays a legal but also a quasi-political role in government, because he advises ministries and sits in cabinet to advise on the various questions that may arise in the process of executing government business. That's number. Number 2, all questions that touched and concerned Judge Kihara then as President of the Court of Appeal, and which are within the hearing of the Judicial Service Commission, perhaps their complaints, will be dealt with in a normal manner. So I don't see any prejudice that would be suffered by Judge Kariuki coming in to sit at the Judicial Service Commission. So I think that we are very professional at the JSC, and we ensure that we leave politics at the door of the Commission as we enter and do our business, and we act professionally. And that explains how we dealt with some of the complaints that were brought against judges on merit, on the meritorious claims over the cases that they determine. The JSC would ordinarily dismiss such claims. But where are the other questions, and we deal with them as the law mandates.
As in the law mandates. Thank you so much for making time for us. I know you've had a long day. Professor Tom Ojenda, Commissioner with the Judicial Service Commission, speaking with us there, Yvonne, and you have other guests in studio to continue with this conversation.
Sophia, thank you for speaking with him there. He obviously has new colleagues joining him in the Judicial Service Commission. So that will be an interesting one to see how this plays out in the coming days and weeks, and whether this is indeed that revisit of the judiciary as has been promised by the President last year during that tense electioneering period. Sophia Wanuna, thank you very much. So I want to remind you that we are taking your feedback. The hashtag is The Big Story. I'm seeing quite a bit of that on Twitter. Please do continue to send your thoughts into the events that have taken place today. That is our big story. We want to turn now to the profile of Professor Githu Muigai. Just a little bit about him. Important to understand. He was born on the 31st of January 1960 in Kiambu County. He has a Doctor of Philosophy in Public Law, which he got from the University of Nairobi, with a Master's in International Law from Columbia University in New York. And of course, he got his bachelor's degree at the University of Nairobi. Important to note that from 2011 up until this point today, He's been the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. That's about 6.5 years, 4 of them under the Jubilee administration. And he would be the first Attorney General under Kenya's new constitution that we promulgated in 2010. He was also a UN Special Rapporteur right before being the Attorney General of this country, and was a partner at Mohamed Muigai Advocates, and that was prior to being appointed as the UN Special Rapporteur, and was also an Associate Professor of Public Law at the University of Nairobi, and became an advocate of the High Court in 1985. Married with 3 children, that is a man. He's also, important to note, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators of the United Kingdom and a member of the Association of American Trial Lawyers, and is a member of quite a number of other professional organizations, including the ICJ, that's the International Commission of Jurists. He's a member of the East African Law Society as well. So that is a little bit more about him. We'll be getting into some of his most notable and controversial performances and achievements at the helm of the legal advisor in this country, the chief legal advisor. We'll be getting to that in just a moment, as well as to speak to my guests. But let's speak to one man who joins me now on phone, who has had quite a bit to say, and that is lawyer James Agrimwamu. He's joining us now from Kisumu County on phone. James, good evening. It's good to speak to you.
Good evening, Yvonne. How are you?
I'm very fine, sir. Thanks for speaking with us on the show. He is an LSK presidential candidate for the upcoming elections, but you have written extensively on the legacy and tenure of Professor Githu Muigai at the helm of his position. What are your thoughts on his legacy and his resignation today?
I think that the professor started very well. We must acknowledge that that's a very challenging position for any lawyer, especially for a professional lawyer when you have to juggle between politics and legal issues. But I think one of the things that professor has let us down on is the defense of the judiciary. Even when politicians were busy attacking the judiciary, he's a member of JSC. Even when the Chief Justice was being attacked, he's a member of JSC. He never uttered a word. At least you will have expected him as a professional lawyer and a serious jurist at that to have advised his clients that, look, where you are going is a no-go zone. Because you see, as a country, we need to build institutions of democracy. One of the institutions of democracy is the judiciary. So that when the Attorney General, whose office has been created under Article 156 of the Constitution, does not protect the judiciary, and under that article, it says that one of the functions of the Attorney General is to protect public interest. So when he's protecting the judiciary, he's protecting the public interest. His argument has always been that his is to advise. But in very serious democracies, when your advice has not been taken seriously, you resign.
Well, well, some would say that's what he's done today. He has resigned.
But it has taken him 6 years.
All right.
It's taken him 6 years. And of course, the other issue has been the issue of the police killings that have gone on. I know that is not under his docket, but abuse of human rights, because under the Constitution is the chief legal advice of the government. We are not saying that there are certain things that he has not done right, but I think by and large, he has not lived up to expectation. His is a very difficult office, I know, but we were expecting much more.
All right, I know you speak of his defense of the judiciary, but when I did interview him on the 1st of January 2017 on Checkpoint, he did speak out quite vehemently against what was happening at the time when Majority Leader Aden Duale had talked about putting a motion of censure in Parliament against Justice Odunga at the time. And he said to me that, that was not the way to go, and he quite disagreed with that and had made that very clear.
Yeah, I know at that particular time, but that was just one occasion. Since that particular time, well, that was a long time ago, since that particular time, there has been a series of issues that have happened where you will have hoped that you will have come out very strongly and advise the government against some of the things, like disobedience of a court order. I mean, the ones that happened in the last 2 weeks. He's been very silent. In fact, somebody will think that he's not even in the country. I know there are some of these things that we don't expect him to hold a press conference. But at least, like the late Mutula Kilonzo, when he disagreed with the Kibaki government over the issue of the appointment of the chief justice and the judges, he came out and said, look, in my opinion, this is not right.
Yeah, but
and that is what we'll expect of a senior lawyer of Professor Githu's stature.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you this then. What do you think of his successor, Justice Paul Kiara?
My friend Justice Paul Kiara is a very fine judge. He's a fine man. And very erudite, very eloquent, very learned judge. What I do not know is how he's going to fare on as the Attorney General. I think it's just too good to be an Attorney General. But we'll wait and see. The jury is still out. He has not started performing his duties. But I think he's basically a judge. How he will transform himself in Attorney General to juggle between politics and the legal matters, I wait to see. Because I think he's just too honest and too straightforward to sit in that seat, which requires a lot of juggling to be done. But I wait to see how it's going to turn out for Justice Paul Kiara. He's a good judge. He's a learned man and very decent.
All right.
But I hope that he's going to be able to juggle between the politics and the legal issues.
Indeed. Thank you very much for speaking with us. James Agri Mwamu, who is an advocate of the High Court, as well as a presidential candidate for the LSK elections that are coming up in just a few weeks. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that. He said something interesting. Justice Kiara is too good to be an Attorney General. We'll be discussing that and much more with my guests. But first, take a look at this moment now when President Uhuru Kenyatta announced Githu Muigai's resignation. And as you listen to the president's words, also take a very keen look at the body language of the two.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
I have today, the 13th of February, 2018, received with regret the resignation of Professor Githu Muigai from the office of Attorney General, effective the date of the appointment of his successor. I wish to place on record, on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Kenya, our gratitude for the committed and dedicated service that Professor Muigai has accorded to our nation over the last 6.5 years that he has served in the office of Attorney General. I wish Professor Muigai all the very best in the next phase of his professional career.
That was just a few hours ago. We're taking a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking a bit more about his legacy, his tenure, and what exactly is happening within the judiciary. We'll be speaking with lawyers Tom Kabau and George Wajakoya here on The Big Story when we return.